Thank you very much. How many of you could relate to that absolutely great introductory speech this morning? Significance, excellence, and innovation. We all want it, don't we? Could you relate to that? Only problem was, how do you get there, right? And we saw what a great job the gentleman from Germany had done to build his little empire. But is that just a little different than the world you live in? What I want to do today is I want to show you how to get to where you want to be using that significance, your excellence, and your own innovation. And don't tell me you're not creative, because I'm going to tell you creativity can be learned. So here's what we're going to cover today. Are you selling tests or are you doing one-offs? What's your differentiator, your unique selling proposition? How do you build one? How do you support and sustain it? How do you make yourself indispensable? And how to develop referral networks so you don't have to do a lot of marketing. I've been a VAA for over 20 years. I learned the hard way. I sold disc and told people about themselves. Guess what? It didn't work. It wasn't until I began using trimetrics and began developing processes that we were able to develop long-term relationships with clients. I'm going to show you how to do that today very simply. And then we're going to summarize it and bring it together before I answer your questions. And those of you that submit good questions, I've got 5 of my last book that I'll be happy to share with you at the end of this presentation. So, how do you change your mindset from where you are now, from telling people something that they already know? How many of you have sat down with people to debrief them and they say, I already knew that? We have to change that to how can we add insight to their present base. We have to change the whole concept of feeling good for a few hours to making them feel good about their potential, their future successes. We have to divert their energies from the present workload. And let me say this. How many of you have sat down with people, you want to get them through this, and they say, I'm so busy I can't pay attention? Am I correct? Jobs are busy. We can focus their energies on how to reduce the work stressors. We can, instead of sharing something that they relate to, but no real practical implication, we have to show them ways to do this. So those speeches were wonderful this morning. They gave us information. I want you to walk away with application. Does that make sense? I want you to walk away with something today that you can take out of here and do. So that's the focus. We don't want to put another binder on somebody's shelf that never gets read again. We want something that they will refer to again and again and again. That makes you indispensable. How are we going to do that? We can't sell tests or seminars. Whose job is it to sell tests? TTI. We have to sell programs and processes that build organizational wellness and employee engagement, do we not? Otherwise, we're not going to last. So, how do we do that? I'm going to give you an example of how I built my USP. Several years ago, I surveyed 1,632 executives. Folks, this isn't hard. Link up with a marketing company who will do the survey, and then you become the expert because you got the results. And I asked them, what are the challenges that you face? There were 8 common themes across 1,200 of these 1,636 companies. Number 2 was finance. Number 5 were technology. Guess what? The other 6, 75% were what? People related. Are we in the people business? Can we fix their problems? Absolutely. What are those 6 problems? There's not a structured career path. I took a company called LandSouth, the largest multifamily complex builder, over the past 5 years from $80 million a year to $400 million a year by making sure that they had a career development path for their people. You know how hard it is to keep contractors in the construction industry? It's a pain. There's a scarcity of skilled individuals. If you read Fortune magazine, they will tell you don't hire by resume. If you Google it, 43% of the information on resumes are fabrications or lies. So if they hire by resume and information, they're hiring on the wrong criteria. Hire by personality, hire by benchmark. Back to that, just a quick quote. How many of you have heard of TracFone? Largest prepaid cellular network in the world. We took their retention rate from 15% to 85% in guess how long? 90 days by benchmarking the positions. Saved them over $560,000 in the first 90 days. There's at least one wrong person in a critical position. Right now, Mayo Clinic has hired me to work with one of their transplant surgeons. There aren't many transplant surgeons in the world. Guess what? This guy is a high IS aesthetic social. Figure that one out. Transplant surgeon, takes 10 hours to do the surgery, high IS, social, aesthetic. That's tough. No wonder he's struggling. Management is autocratic. These skills helped us move TracFone off of where they were. Instead of an autocratic leadership, we moved them on. And our department lacks synergy, a strong work ethic, and positive environment. Chemistry is the key. We're going to see in a little while how employees want something very different than an employer wants. There's regular turnover. The larger the company, the higher the level of turnover. Small companies' turnover is normally around 29%, medium companies around 40%, larger companies average over 50%. These are things that you as an individual, a VAA, can fix, and I'm going to show you how in just a few minutes. How do you support it? This is critical information for you to present to your people. These are the kind of tests that they are giving to employees. First thing, 75% of the employees get skills tests. 73% get personality and abilities. But look at job match, only 42%. And of that, 54%, 42% are used for career development. So the tests that they are giving them are not the right test, because we know that if we job match with the trimetrics and we measure behaviors for job fit, motivators for cultural fit, and dimensional balance for the way that they blend their job and their personal lives together, we now have a 78% accuracy. Interest test, 65. You see, abilities is really only effective 56% of the time. That's not good enough, folks. It's not good enough. So what do? We use the trimetrics, and I have focused on this concept of human data management. Why? Because data is what companies run by, do they not? They will do marketing surveys to find out if they can penetrate their markets, build their marketing plans, and they will spend untold thousands for that. They will spend untold thousands to have the right CFO and the right pro forma put together. But guess what? They don't have any data on people, and people are 75% of the issue. Hello? Wake up. This is something critical we have to focus on. And as Bill Bonstetter said a few years ago, multivariate analysis ensures engagement occurs in all stages of the employee life cycle. And I'm going to show you how that works very shortly. We have to build a management path, not just a hiring tool. So, how do you expand your reach and improve your retainers? As a personal coach, mentor, you can speak to the individual and guide them through personal growth. As an organizational coach and mentor, you speak to a group of people, guiding them through the career development process. Now, how do you do that? First of all, we have to understand the three aspects of an employee's life cycle. How many of you have heard that concept, employee life cycle? Folks, this is critical. An employee doesn't just come to work for the first 90 days. The reason companies have turnover, and according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 2 years and 4 months is all you're going to keep a person. 2 years and 4 months. Folks, they're just getting the head knowledge at that point to make the company profitable, are they not? So how do we get over that process? We have to understand that most companies start engagement not at the acquisition phase, but in the developmental phase and pull it on to the retention phase. I believe engagement should start during the hiring or acquisition phase, and then it will continue through the developmental and retention phase, and I'm going to show you how. What corporate problems and people problems can you solve? If you look at this graphic on the top of the page, you see what the company wants. All a company really wants to know, can they do the job and will they do the job? Am I right? Can they do the job and will they do the job? Employee doesn't care. They want to know, will I have a good place to work and are you going to build my resume? Would you agree with that? The employee has something very different in mind when they enter the workforce. And what you, as value-added associates, can do with the human data that you gather is help bring those things together, and we'll wrap that up at the end. Now, if you don't remember anything else about the presentation today, remember what I'm getting ready to tell you now. Here is your secret to building your business. First of all, define a problem that you can solve with people metrics. What is it that you can do? Is it focused more during the acquisition phase? Is it focused more in the developmental phase? Or is it focused more in the retention phase? What problem can you solve? Now, you say, well, I don't know. I'm a new VAA. I don't have a lot of information. I want to tell you about a phrase that I heard some 20 years ago, right after I became a VAA. How many of you have heard the name Earl Nightingale? Good. He put out a program called Field of Diamonds. You remember it? One day I was listening to that as I was driving down the road, and he said something that forever changed my life, second only to my faith. And that is, if you spend 1 hour a day, daily, for a year to 2 years, you will become an expert. You know what? I believed Earl Nightingale, and within 18 months, I was paying my bills, selling assessments and doing training and development at that point. Think about it, folks. 1 hour a day. How many of you can't do that? 1 hour a day for 1 to 2 years. Add on top of that what Zig Ziglar told me as we were both speaking at the Marriott in Washington, D.C. He says, if you want to be successful, start helping people. The more people you help, the more you will become successful. That's what we're in the business of doing, folks, is it not? We are not categorizing people. We are not plugging them into a box like Myers-Briggs does. We are identifying their uniqueness as an individual and how they can work in a stress-free environment and do one heck of a job with their career. Does that make sense? That's helping people. And that's what becoming a good expert is. Now, what's the answer? What's the aha? What is the answer that you can give them? Human data will tell you if the person's in the right job. Human data will tell you if you're on the right career path. Human data will tell you if you have the right person to promote, will it not? So what you do is you spell out a process, give them a solution to the problem, and illustrate how you're going to solve it with Trimetrix data. Does that make sense? Step 1, step 2, step 3. And then summarize it and illustrate how human data will solve their problems. And what are they going to say at that point? How did they respond? Folks, this is data. Data has met the challenges that you faced in marketing. Data has helped you meet and beat the challenges that you had in finances to know if the company's sustainable. And data can give you the success with 75% of your people issues. Can it not? How many of you believe that? You have to. This is the business that we're in. So what's your differentiator? That differentiator, once you have it, once you've discovered it, you must refuse to do seminars. Oh, I know you're having trauma now. I got a call this past week from a very large waste disposal company, and they said, "Can you do a conflict seminar?" And I said, "No, sir." Why? The money is going to be wasted. You will not help a person in an hour and a half. It takes 6 months to change behaviors with the information and data that we have. I refuse to accept a client for less than 6 months. Folks, you have to change the way that you think. You have to strive for significance, for excellence, and innovation. And the only way you can do that is becoming an expert in where you're going. Our approach in employee acquisition phase gives you a competitive edge through objectivity. Data is very objective. It's non-emotional, is it not? People tend to get emotional. We know that based on statistics, 67% of the people are what? High ISs with high social and or aesthetic. So 67% of the people are subjective people. They're swayed by their emotions. When we bring this down to a non-emotional perspective, we now have data that we can work with that will transform the way an organization looks at their people. How do we do that? In all phases of the individual or employee's life cycle. I'm going to take you through the 3 cycles, and I'm going to ask you to think about which is the area that I have the most expertise in and that I want to spend 1 hour a day for the next year and a half so that I will be an expert. During the acquisition phase, benchmarking. Any company that goes into hiring people without benchmarking the position is playing hit and miss. Do you know what the chances of success are? 14%. If they hire by resume, 14%. Screening. Identifying the individuals with the closest hard and soft skills. You're not going to be measuring the hard skills. They have skills tests for that, but do they have the soft skills? Benchmarking helps us understand if they have those. Fortune magazine says hire by personality, not by skills. Why? Skills can be learned, can they not? You can't change a person's personality unless you know something I don't know. Hiring, ensure that the written and mental resumes are congruent. What do I mean by mental resume? Are the behaviors, the motivators, and the dimensional balance and capacities congruent with what they've written in the resume? The resume is 43% fabrication. We know that. So what we have to do now is take a look at that particular resume and say, something's not right here. The mental resume says you're a high DI and you're applying for a programmer's job. Develop the skills to ensure that those things fit. And the only way you can do that is if you have a benchmark established for the person. During the developmental stage, those of you who are involved in organizational development and training, this is your phase. Onboarding. When you focus on the history, the culture, and the employee's personal contribution to the company's success, you now have a chance for helping them succeed. Do you know that over 85% of the employees in America today cannot tell you how they contribute to the organization's profitability? That's pretty scary, isn't it? That's our job, is to make sure that they understand how they fit in. And when they do, they now become what? Engaged. What's engagement in the United States? Less than 32%. It's worse in Europe, folks, 28%. My office over there stays constantly busy with engagement stuff. Next, data-driven training. Each person is introduced to foundational principles here. When you have a benchmark set and you have the profile of the individual, does that not tell you what skills they need? Soft skills? Are you with me? Am I making sense? If you have the benchmark, you know what training they need. You now take that data and build the soft skills training that they need. The company's going to know what hard skills they need. You don't need to worry about that. But you have to tell them what soft skills they need. Then the skill set development, a structured program is a pure necessity. What was the number one thing that employees wanted? They wanted a career development path. And without skill set development, both hard skills and soft skills, there is no future in their mind for the organization. That's why 2.4 years they're going to turn over. And those of you that want to focus on the retention phase, consider these three parts. Performance reviews. Did you know that 51% of employees think a performance review is negative? It's because of the subjectivity involved. If you use three types of reviews, the normal objective scoring process, an MBO, or what we call a PDP, personal development plan, and a 360, the norm in America is 72% agreement with that performance review. Big change from 49 to 72%. Capacity development. You remember when we showed the little graphic? This was the most important part of what an employee wanted in their job. Building a foundation of emotional intelligence. You see, I believe very strongly that if a company increases the emotional intelligence of their employees, they will keep their employees. I spent the last few years developing this process, and self-awareness and self-regulation is where you must begin. If you do not build those core foundational concepts into the employees that you work with, they will not stay at the company they're working with. because 68% of the people leave because of what? Their boss. There's a gap. They don't understand themselves, plus they don't understand how to regulate. Those two foundational principles are your role, your responsibility as a VAA consultant. If you're not doing that for the company, you will not stay there. Your consultant fees will go away. You have to build that capacity development into them. And in promotion has in the past focused on the Peter Principle. Most of you may or may not have heard that word, but that's being promoted one level above your competency. There's no need for that. With human data, you can tell whether the person that's eligible for promotion can do that job ahead of time. Can you not? Human data answers the questions from benchmarking to retirement. These 9 steps in the employee's life cycle will help you build that long-term relationship. When I tell clients I won't work for them for less than 6 months, do you know what my average tenure is with a client? 4.5 years. Because once we fix their hiring processes, guess what? The developmental processes have to be fixed. Then the retention processes need to be fixed. Dig deep into your companies. Once you show them what you can do, you won't have any problems from that point on. Make yourself indispensable. That's the key. How do you do that? I've had the good fortune of having 6 graduate students while I was teaching at Oxford and Cambridge in the United Kingdom. We were able to identify what you could do in a 6 to 9 month period to increase a person's self-esteem. We proved that over a 10-month period, we can increase emotional intelligence 11%. Folks, these are things that all you have to do is call a marketing company. Let them get you out there. They do surveys all the time. Why can't you take that survey information and write a white paper? One on emotional intelligence, one on safety. We can actually predict a person's going to have an accident within the next year with some of the assessments that we use. We can show how to increase self-esteem. But everything that you write as you go through this 18 to 24 months that Earl Nightingale says will change your life, write. Some of you may say, well, I'm a high I don't like to write. They have digital recorders. Digital recorders work. And guess what? Of the books, the 6 books that I've written, the 50 manuals, none of them have been written like this. You dictate and you edit. You dictate and you edit. That's the key, folks. Dictate and edit. And guess what? Over a period of years, I'm an old guy, so I've had lots of time to do this. It will mount up, and your credibility will make you indispensable. Human data transforms an individual and the company at the same time. You see, they're asking, can they do the job and will they? And the employee is saying, am I going to have a great place to work? And are you going to build my resume? But you can take them with human data to a point where the guys and gals say, I can do the job. I will do the job for you because I know that you're going to provide me with a great place to work and you're going to build my resume. That's the win-win that you, as value-added associates, can do. How do you do it? Remember, what's the problem that you can solve? What's the answer and how do you get there? You get there with what? Human data. Am I making sense? Don't throw away a lot of money on marketing. My clients get me all the clients I want. This is just a small smattering of people who make phone calls for me. and introduce me to new people. I have one client alone that has referred me to 30 other companies. Folks, marketing is good. It keeps you up on the social media, but don't depend on marketing to pay your bills. Depend on your clients to pay your bills and the referrals they will give you. I've been a VAA for 22 years. I never advertised until this past year when I was told that if I didn't get a social media account on LinkedIn and Facebook, people weren't going to know who I were. So I did. But there's no reason. These networks will build everything you need for them. Have I made sense so far? Do each of you have an understanding of how you can become successful? It's not a concept, and it's not what somebody else has done. It's what you can do by defining the problem you can solve, giving them the answer, and then telling them how they're going to get to the answer over the next 6 months. Make sense? Thank you very much. First question. If you ask this question, please raise your hand and we'll get a book to you. I'm sorry? What is the what? Okay. What's the question? Okay. Who asked this? Do I have a favorite tool? Would you pass that to him, sir? Okay. I use the Trimetrics HD. And the reason I use it is because, first of all, the behaviors tell us about actually performing the job so that you can get it to a stress-free environment. The values will tell us if the person fits into the culture themselves, because you put a high aesthetic social in with computer programmers who are high theoretical utilitarian, ain't going to happen. And I use the dimensional balance for one very important reason. If their external factors are extremely high and their internal factors are low, what's going to happen at some point? We're going to have issues, aren't we? There are going to be emotional responses in the workplace, and we're going to have conflict in the workplace. Does that make sense? Second question. What assessment have you used that could predict an employee would have an accident? And how did you pick that out of the assessment? Good question. I use a tool called the Quality of Motivation Questionnaire. It is the only motivational profile validated in over 130 studies. And I did this with Johnson Matthey Corporation, the world's largest catalytic converter. They're in 38 countries. And we also did a 4-industry study. You can download the white paper from my website, but we studied the chemical, the municipality, the transportation, and the metals industry of who had had accidents for the past 5 years, who had not had accidents in the past 5 years in the same job. And with that tool, we identified 12 significant differences. If you'll go to my website, there's a TED Talk on it, and you'll be able to see from that. Who asked that question? Okay, thank you. Let me say this before we go on. I'm licensed to administer 252 different assessments. I rarely use any of them except the Trimetrics. There's no reason to. It gives you the multiple dimensions that are there, and it will help you. If you need a validity factor, we're getting closer and closer on that, and I love what TTI is doing now, bringing the services to you, because most people, as they're ramping up, need something that they can rely on. Our next question. Will you provide an example of your verbiage to have the conversation with a potential client of process offering a 6-month program, i.e. versus an event? How do you shift the thinking? Mr. Prospect, I appreciate your desire to help your employees. You're one of those rare bosses that cares enough to invest in their people. However, did you know in Australia, companies of over 100 employees are required to invest a minimum of 4% of their income in organizational development? Why is that? It's because it takes time to change people. I can give you a seminar and your people may feel good for a few hours. But how many of you have been to a motivational seminar, felt good, and then 2 weeks later hadn't done one thing that they told you to? That's the truth. That's the reality. And you know what? My clients like me because they know I won't lie to them. If you fudge factor with a client, they will figure it out and they will never refer you. Refuse to lie to them. Tell them the truth. If there's an issue, tell them. If you give me 6 months to work with your people and they don't change based on the work that I've done for you, I will give you your money back. I've been doing this for over 20 years and I have never written a check. Never. Because even if they don't get all the change they want, they got some, and guess what? That's good enough. Who asked that question? Would you pass that back, please? Did that answer your question? Good. What is your main client in your organizations? When I started back in 1993, 100% of my clients were corporations. Now 60% of them are. 60% of them are nonprofits. My heart has changed over the years, and I'm very much invested in helping people help people. As a matter of fact, something that you're going to see probably late this year, early next year, is we have identified how to craft behavior and values into letters sent to donors in nonprofits to increase the value and amount of the donations. I've been on the nonprofit innovation circle for the past couple years, and we have shown anywhere from 9 to 13% increase by crafting the letters to the donor base. Now, let me give you just an example, and I won't say the name of the organization, but you can figure this one out. It's the largest nonprofit, politically active organization in Washington, D.C. on the conservative end. Okay? They gave me their database of millions of people. We ran it through Crystal reports and identified that the majority, 42% of their people were high Cs. High theoretical. Now you understand why their letters are so long and why they induce fear with their letters that if we don't do something, America's going to change. So with that, we boosted their income over $1 million this past year simply by focusing on the high theoretical, high C mindset. Marketing is going to change, folks, and you are here at the right time. You can help that happen. Who asked that question? Yes, sir. Who were the people I surveyed? Is that what? Oh, the main client. Oh, I'm sorry. CEOs. Hey, listen, I'm an SPHR. I have nothing against HR people, but they are not the people to talk to. Why? Human resource population is down 20% in the past 10 years. Guess what? In the next 10 years, it's going to drop another 10%. The roles are being phased out, folks. People are going to discover that you, human data management consultants, have answers that HR people don't have or are not seeking right now. Okay, last question. How do you shorten the decision-making process in companies? Good question. The higher to the top you go, the faster the decision is made. You never start at the bottom. If you can't see anybody but someone at the bottom, don't see them. The most important thing you can do is target the companies you want, and if the verbiage is true, that you are never more than 6 people away from the President of the United States, you are never more than 6 people away from finding someone inside that company that you can then talk to and work your way to the right person. I'm serious, folks. Don't waste your time, because once it's shot down, they will never let you back in. Go for the top. Who asked that question? Would you pass that back, please? Thank you. Okay. Those of you who didn't, I've got some free jump drives. If you'd like them, it's got the website. Anytime I can help you, drop me a note. I'm not adverse. Either Linda or John may answer your request, but I will get back with you personally to help you in any way. And those of you who would like a copy of my book that's coming out in March, based on how do you solve those 6 problems, I'm using case studies from major corporations on how you address those 6 issues. You now have a way to prove to people that you can deal with the top 6 issues. I will send you that book free for the first 100 people that send me their notes. I will send you that book free when it's published in March. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.